Anthony, hello. If you are watching Lincoln Riley, it's a big day in the world of Trojan football. After a 2 month long, 2 months plus some change long search, the coaching search is officially over, and it's Lincoln Riley. He's in as the Trojans' new head coach. A hire that, frankly, to me came out of nowhere. I had no idea this was going to happen. They were, for the last week, it was like, it'll be Luke Fickell, it'll be Dave Aranda, it'll be Matt Campbell, and then, like, boom, this morning, Lincoln Riley. Anthony, give me your takeaways from the bombshell, the surprising, the shocking hire.
Yeah, you said it. Shocking. No one saw it coming. We kept hearing the names like Luke Fickell, Dave Aranda, and those kind of trickled down to Matt Campbell. I was even trolled on Friday. A fake account said Matt Campbell was the front runner, and then that obviously didn't happen. And then we also saw Kyle. I saw Kyle Whittingham. We saw Jeff Fisher. We saw so many names, but we didn't see Lincoln Riley. And it's a crazy hire. It's unbelievable. I mean, since 2017, this program, since that Rose Bowl game, some may even argue before, it's been on the down. Obviously the Clay Helton era was not great. The athletic directors, Lynn Swan and Pat Hayden, the mediocrity that was on the field, even off the field, recruiting, it wasn't USC-esque. It wasn't the Trojans in the past, the Pete Carroll era, whatever era you want to talk about. It wasn't that. And things were going bad, and things were probably at its worst this season. I know many might say 2018. I think you said 2018 was worse. But this is, it was getting ugly. There were no airplanes saying, fire Clay Helton because he was already fired in 2 days. You get a new athletic director in 2019, and the pandemic happens. You go 5-0, and then you lose in the Pac-12 championship to an Oregon team that's not even supposed to be there. And then the recruits start getting bad, and then you fire Clay Helton in 2 games, and then you do some bad stuff at the Coliseum, and then you get this hire. And this is Mike Bone and Brandon Sosna. This is that legendary hire. I don't care what happens. Mike Bone and Brandon Sosna, Heritage Hall, put a plaque right now in their name for this hire, this Lincoln Riley heist that they just pulled off. Because look, USC football, I don't care what you say, it was looking bad. I mean, the Coliseum was practically empty in most games, and USC basketball had been very successful. And I was starting to think maybe it might shift that way. You never know, but they saved the program. They really did. And shout out to also Cal Folt. I know she gets a lot of slack, but she might have probably approved a little bit. Maybe she had a part. I don't know, but it's a crazy hire. You basically said it. Bombshell, home run, whatever the hell you want to say. No, yeah, nobody saw this coming.
Yeah. And the one thing we knew all along is that they needed to hire a big name, like one of the biggest names that was available on the market, even bigger than a Matt Campbell, even bigger than a Luke Fickell. Those are certainly big names. I mean, honestly, I was like happy with those guys because they were what I thought was like the best that they could possibly do. And then out of nowhere, Lincoln Riley. I mean, dude, you're seeing right now, like Oklahoma's losing 5 stars. They're dropping like flies. Presumably, a lot of them are going to be coming to USC. It's like just like that. This program, you were talking about it. Nobody was showing up to the games. Nobody really cared. Yeah, they did bad things at home. That was a really nice way of putting it, by the way.
Yeah,
They lost by like what 14, 16, 18, and 29 points at home. And people just stopped caring. People became apathetic. And I think what you saw today when the news broke right after noon is like people are like USC's back. Never mind USC is on the road to being back. They're almost back. They're coming back. They were like, no, USC is already back. And obviously they're going to have to go out and win games, actually get these guys, go to a I don't know, Rose Bowl, college football playoff, win the Pac-12 would be a nice place to start. But like they are on the road, they are coming back. Like I've never seen something flip this fast. And this is why I was telling you, Anthony, this is why I was telling you that as bad as 2021 has been, the team might be worse. The record's certainly going to be worse. We're not even going to talk about the games because nobody cares at this point. I think the Cal game was like the most most meaningless college football game that ever happened, at least this season, and at least for USC this year. But I just got sidetracked. I don't know where I was going. This is huge. Like, we knew that they needed a massive name. We knew that they need. This is where I was. Sorry, there's so many things running through my brain right now. That's why I was saying that this is not as bad as 2018, because in 2018 you didn't have this. 2018 you were like, when is this going to end? When are they going to fire Clay Helton? It was apparent at that point. I remember after they lost to Cal, I was like, I can't believe he's still here. Like, I don't know what and he was there for 3 more years. Like, it's shocking. It's truly shocking. The old athletic administration in Heritage Hall was obviously not it. They didn't do a comprehensive enough coaching search. That's why they ended up with the situation that they had. But this one, Bone, Brandon Sosna, I mean, they just nailed it. But that's why I was saying that 2018 was so much worse, because you always had the possibility this year of this happening, of one day, all the apathy, all the USC is spiraling downward, going in the wrong way. That could all be reversed if they got the head coaching hire right. And again, he hasn't coached a single game here yet. He hasn't officially flipped one guy to come here, although that might happen by the end of the show. But this is that, like, people are starting to believe again. Matt Leinart all season has been like, this team is unbearable to watch. It's impossible to watch. Things are so bad. There's like no pride in the Trojan family. Today, he was tweeting, it's a great day to be a Trojan. I can't stop smiling. He was all over it. Everybody's all over it. It just seems like just like that. And it didn't happen with an upset over BYU. That would have been fun, whatever, but like it wouldn't have really meant anything. It happened because they hired the right guy, and they hired a name. They hired somebody who reinstilled the belief, the notion that everybody knew that USC is still a premier destination and they can still attract the top guys, and they're not irrelevant. They were irrelevant for a few years, but all of a sudden they're right back in the mix of college football's. I mean, I can't say great teams yet, but like programs that are most promising, on the up and up. And I don't know how you can be anything but purely overcome with excitement and joy, because this seems like, as of now, based on what's happened even in the 7.5 hours since the news was leaked that they were going to be hiring him, it's already making an imprint on the program, in recruits, in the way that fans are thinking, the way that people believe in the program. It's like it's an entirely new era of Trojan football. It's beyond exciting.
It's a seismic shift. That's really the best way. It was just like an earthquake. I mean, the amount of attention that was drawn to USC, Lincoln Riley immediately started trending. And then you saw, like you mentioned, the recruits started to decommit. Conversation started to reopen. I think there was a recruit, might have been Modern Day's running back, who tweeted something about old Trojans and like with the eye or something like that. I'm like not quoting it directly, but it was something like that. And you could see, I mean, people are realizing USC's back. And it was funny to see a lot of, of the rivals, the UCLA's, the Notre Dames, getting a little scared. I mean, the Pac-12, look, the Pac-12 is not, incredibly strong. Pac-12 South especially. So it's not like Lincoln Riley is coming into the SEC and he's gonna have to be fighting a bunch of dogs. I mean, this is a good system for him. And I think obviously Lincoln Riley hasn't played a game yet, hasn't made really any appearance as a USC head coach, but it's made such a seismic impact on the program that was really, I mean, we talked about it before, it was always going to depend on this head coaching hire. If they got the right name, that it would flip everything. And now people are starting to talk about USC football again. I wouldn't even be surprised at all if USC has one of those big TV games at the beginning of the season next year against a big name school at the College. Would not be surprised at all. That's just the impact of Lincoln Riley right there. That's the impact of a big name get. And Brandon Sosna, Mike Bone, they pulled it off. It was a heist, $1 million. If this was Grand Theft Auto 5, they would be billionaires. I'm telling you, that's how it is right now, because they pulled off such a big hire. And I was with you. I was satisfied with Dave Aranda, Matt Campbell. I was satisfied with that because no one thought this big of a name would come, because there was nothing coming out.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about early season next year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Coliseum is jam-packed on game one.
Yeah.
I mean, people are just so excited that the program has made a statement like this, and I think it's something that people have been wanting for years. And the fact that They actually came through. I mean, people have been doing the whole Bone and Sosna don't care about winning. Carol Folt was like thrown into the conversation, like she doesn't care about football. Which, by the way, it was funny that she tweeted after the game last night, like, "Congrats on a hard fought season. Until next time." When like they still have one more game left, but we don't need to talk about that. But like they those were always like somewhat unfounded allegations because I mean they always cared and they always knew what it took to build a program that people are going to actually be invested in, and they did that because I mean we already talked like people believe that the program is back. People care. People think that they're on the rise because they are. And just tell me right now, I might be mixing up these years, but Baker Mayfield 26-15, Kyler Murray 2016, Jalen Hurts 2017. That it might have been 16, 17, 18. I might have gotten the order wrong, but two Heisman winners, a Heisman runner up. Tell me what quarterback recruit, Devin Brown maybe, isn't going to say, "Oh my God, this is the school that I have to absolutely be at." I mean, you're going to see them start flipping like it's nobody's business. It's already, like we said, started tonight. It's just like they completely nailed the hire. It was a bigger name than we could have possibly imagined. Like you were saying, guys like Jeff Fisher started coming into the conversation. It was like, are we really going to do this again? Are we really going to do this? But yeah, they hit it out of the park. Anthony, I kind of want to take a step back here and ask about the timeline because I don't think people believe realistically that they're going to be like college football playoff contenders next year. I think they might be somewhat near the conversation, but it's not the kind of thing where you go from, at this point, 67th ranked recruiting class, although that's certainly going to get better. Teams like 4-7 or 4-8, 5-7, whatever they end the year at. And then like all of a sudden they're like with, Alabama and Georgia and that tier of college football teams. So how long do you think it is before USC is being talked about as like one of the, not just better or not just one of the great programs, but like up there in national championship contention? Because I think it's not going to take 1 year, but I don't even know if it necessarily has to take 5 or 6. I think that they could be right there in 3 or 4, maybe even 2 years.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Definitely not next year. That would just be insane. I think because there's a lot of cleaning up Lincoln Riley has to do in terms of recruiting. First and foremost, he's got to get more. That process of take back the West. He's got to lead that, and he's got to stick to it. Obviously, we have to see what he's going to do with the staff. Who stays around, who leaves, who he brings in. That's going to be important. But I definitely don't think it would be in the first 2 seasons. I think he'll be competing for a Pac-12 championship, I think, next year. I think that's probably more because of the way the Pac-12 is now and the state of it, how there's really not many powerhouses. But then year 2 will be climbing, and I think year 3, that's just because he'll have more time in a recruiting cycle. Because right now he's coming in about 2 weeks until signing day. So December 15th is signing day. He's got about two weeks and a couple of days to kind of fix that 67th ranked, and who knows how many of those 5 stars he can save. And then once he has, after that, then he's got 1 recruiting cycle and then another, and after 2, I think that's when you'll start seeing the change and the noticeable effect. He's still got to like USC football. There's a reason why they're 4-7. It's years of Clay Helton and his aura that's still on the program. So he's got to turn that around. And you got to also see who's coming back next year. Maybe some juniors who are thinking of going to the draft. Maybe they stick around. I saw someone, I forgot what player, but they quote tweeted Drake London's tweet and they said, "Oh, you're coming back now, right?" And I definitely don't think that's going to happen.
No.
But I think it'll take a couple years. I mean, it's, realistically, we'll look back at Pete Carroll, the last really big hire, 6-6 the first year. Second year, they picked it up and then off he went. I don't think that's going to happen this year or this time around, just because I think college football is different now. I think the powerhouses like the SEC, they really got a big hold on college football. But I saw your poll, and I think the majority, your poll asked how many years will it take. The majority actually said 7+, which I thought was pretty crazy to think about. Definitely don't think it's going to take 7+, but I think, by year 3 or 4, they'll be in that mix. The college football playoff will be realistic. But I actually want to ask you something. Something that people are kind of underestimating. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement that goes on, but he's, Lincoln Riley's 1-4 in bowl games, or I think 1-3, and they tend, from based on what some Oklahoma fans are saying, they tend to be outstanding in the regular season. You win the conference title, and the big games come around, and then you're not doing too well. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think it's certainly legitimate. I also don't think USC right now is really in a position where they can say, yeah, he brings them to the college football playoff a lot. They don't win it. They're only a top 4, but not a top 2. It's like, okay, do you want to get Nick Saban or something like that? Like, do you expect, I don't know, Dabo Sweeney to like come to you? Like, those weren't going to happen. So, like, it isn't like they were going to be getting a guy that's consistently like bringing national championships. And also, yeah, he's definitely recruited talented rosters, but they weren't like Alabama, Clemson talented rosters, Ohio State talented rosters, and you put him in LA, he definitely could do that. Like they could be not just top 10, but like top 3 or 2 or 1 recruiting classes in the entire country. And with that comes, the fact that you can hang with teams like Alabama and Clemson and Ohio, or Clemson in, normal years, and Ohio State when they're at their best. So I'm definitely not, I don't think it's like, he folds under, big bowl game moments or pressure or anything like that, because I don't really think there's much to that argument. But sure, it's definitely worth noting that like they get there, but not quite all the way there. I don't think it's something that USC is in a position to worry about because they're so far from getting there in the first place. B, they actually had the chance to hire somebody who's done that because, again, they weren't going to hire Nick Saban or anything of that caliber. And C, it's something that he can overcome just based on being in Los Angeles and getting the talent from around here that USC should be getting on an annual basis and hasn't been. So my worry meter as far as that goes is like on a scale from 1 to 10, it's probably at like a 0. I would say the one hesitation or skepticism that I'll put some weight into is the fact that Oklahoma's offenses year in and year out have just been phenomenal. Wow, phenomenal. But the defense hasn't been, nearly on par with that. And that's probably a Big 12 thing, but it's also like they definitely haven't had national championship caliber defenses, but also like I think he kind of understands that he's like, if he hires good staff around him and he gets guys to want to come play for him and they have a different defensive coordinator and different, defensive backs coach and linebackers coach and all those kinds of things, then the defense can be right up there with the offense. Sure, he might be calling plays on offense. Maybe Graham Harrell will still be here. I want to talk about the staff a little bit, further on in the show too, because there's some interesting connections between Riley and some of the current USC staff. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about that because I think it's less about who he is and more about who he surrounds himself with. And I'm not too worried that he's going to, be able to do that because I think, like he understands that he's not a defensive mastermind. He might be an offensive mastermind, but he's not a defensive mastermind. And once he gets on the recruiting trail and he starts getting guys to want to come play for him, guys from every position are going to be like, this is an awesome spot to be at. I can actually develop talent and turn into an NFL caliber player here, which is something that USC hasn't been able to say for the last few years. So if we're doing the whole panic meter thing about the defense, I'd say it's like a 3 out of 10. But, as far as winning big bowl games, I'm not too concerned. I also want to add to everybody joining us on the show, make sure to join the chat and give us your thoughts, whatever they may be, even if it's just a bunch of keyboard smashing about how excited you are that Lincoln Riley is USC's new head coach. Or if you have questions or thoughts or anything you feel like should be addressed, make sure to hit up the chat and let us know what you think. Obviously, a huge day in USC football. We want to hear all your thoughts too. But Anthony, I want to get into some of the staff a bit because I think there are some names we know pretty much are going to be gone. Todd Orlando, I would be floored if he's still here next year. I think it would be let's just say the Lincoln Riley era would be off to a bad start if he's still. Although the defense played pretty well in the second half last night, I will give him credit for that. But there's an interesting connection between him and Graham Harrell. He was coaching. Riley was coaching at Texas Tech when Harrell was Texas Tech's quarterback from 05 to 08. And then Seth Doge, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I probably should have figured that one out. But they were teammates at Texas Tech too. and then they coached together at Texas Tech and East Carolina. So you have some connections there. He's definitely an outsider. He's not like an LA guy. Um, but there's some connections to some guys on the staff. Do you think those guys are going to stick around, or do you think it's just going to be totally clean house and hire his own guys or call his own plays? I think that's certainly a possibility too. What do you think happens with the staff around him?
Yeah, I mean Graham Harrell is probably the most likely, and it's not like he has like a high percentage. But I think he just because of his relationship with Lincoln Riley and more of his familiarity with Jackson Dart and that quarterback room, you might keep him around. But I think he definitely won't be the offensive coordinator. You might just keep him around as a quarterback coach and figure it out, and he could call plays himself. Tyler was gone. There's just there's just no reason why he should return. I'm actually intrigued to see what happens with Dante Williams if he's able to stay around, because really the pro of Dante Williams, prior to him being promoted to head coach, was that he was a recruiting guru. He was an outstanding recruiter, and now you have Lincoln Riley, who is himself an outstanding recruiter. Do you just keep him, and you can just tag team it? But I'm not sure. But Graham Hill, really, I think. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if he returns, but I also would not be surprised if he just leaves and Lincoln Riley brings his own.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't be the worst move for him to just say, okay, this is an entirely new era. I'm going to come in here and do completely my own thing and just hire new guys all across the board. I mean, this is a program that needs a reset in many areas, whether it's roster, whether it's head coaching. And I think it applies to the entire coaching staff too. So I think, yeah, maybe if they want to keep around Graham Harrell, but, I don't know if, like, Riley's probably going to want to call his own plays because that's what he does. And Harrell, I don't know if he's going to want to really take a back seat like that. So I don't know how that dynamic's going to really work out. Maybe they like split play calling duties or something like that. So, I mean, it's certainly possible that he sticks around here, but I would say if I had to put my money on it, I think he just clears house and says, I'm going to bring in my own guys because what I've been doing has been working. He has his own guys on his staff at Oklahoma. Maybe he brings a lot of those guys over, but I think it's going to look very different. I would say Dante Williams, they might try to keep him around for recruiting purposes because we know what he can do on the trail, and that would certainly be about a valuable asset to this team, especially when you consider that Riley doesn't have many West Coast, California, LA ties himself, and Dante Williams does have that. So that might be a valuable asset for them. But other than him, I mean, I think it's going to look totally different. I think it probably should look totally different too.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I cut off before, so sorry about that. My Wi-Fi is a little messy right now, but yeah, I mean, look, they're 4-7. I think on the defensive side, I really don't see anyone coming back. Tar Orlando is. He knows he's gone. Vic Soto probably out there. Does special teams coach stay around? He's also Coach Schneider. He's also a great recruiter. Does he stick around? So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Lincoln Riley, like you said, he has his own guys. They've been successful. Wouldn't be surprised if he brings them along and they can just take over the West and they could figure it out in USC. But you had an interesting point early on about those bowl games. Look, if that was like the defining factor, if you were overthinking, if you were Mike Bone and Brandon Sauce, if you're looking at that bowl ranking, you're like, I don't know if we should do that, you're not going to hire anybody. And I think the people that were bringing that up, saying, oh, he can't play in the big games, I saw some Oklahoma Sooner fans who were a little salty. They were being like, oh, you're going to win your conference, and then you're going to just not play well in the big games. Well, I mean, at least we win the conference, baby steps. Because then they'll figure it out once they get there. USC hasn't won a Pac-12 in, 4 years? And I think if that's a defining factor, and you said it, you're not going to get anybody. You can't get Nick Saban, you can't get Dabo Swinney. So I think that's a not really a risk, but something that you kind of just don't pay attention to as much as others might, and you get that higher because, look, they were not going to get anybody as great as Lincoln Riley. I don't know who else was in the mix, but this is just exceeds every expectation that we had, that the fans had also about who could come. And we just didn't know about Lincoln Riley. All we heard, like we said, Matt Campbell, Dave Aranda. So you can't pay attention to that bowl game. And also the defensive thing, I forgot about that. defense can't get worse than what it was this year.
Mm.
66 points to UCLA, 45 to Oregon State, all that stuff. People were coming to Coliseum and having career days. It was like pro day every week for someone that was coming in the Coliseum. It can't get worse than that. So just put that to the side, get the hire, and that's what they did. And I'm pretty sure they were thinking that too. But how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, I mean, even if it's only marginally better, like this is an offense that I could see being one of those teams that just, drops a cool and easy like 50 on a week in and week out basis. Obviously, that's not a sustainable model for winning national championships or winning the Pac-12 when you have to go up against teams like Oregon or winning Rose Bowls or things like that. But they're definitely going to be able to win a few games as long as the defense isn't any worse, which, like you said, it can't possibly be. But Anthony, why don't we talk about Jackson Dart? Because I'm really fascinated to see what happens under Lincoln Riley. We talked about the Heisman winning and Heisman runner-up quarterbacks that he's coached over the years, and Jackson Dart is a guy who I think, Heisman caliber. It's probably too early to say whether or not that's in the cards for sure, but a year of an off season with Jackson Dart under Lincoln Riley, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, a couple weeks ago, Keontae Ingram basically told the media Jackson Dart's going to win a Heisman. Remember that. And now Lincoln Riley's coming in. I'm not saying it's bound to happen, but his odds have gone up. I think Dart, we didn't talk about last night's game, but I thought he looked pretty good last night. Second career start. Didn't look phased. He extended plays. He made smart moves. And I think it's gonna be special. I think Lincoln Riley is really gonna help his development. You talked about it earlier with Kyler Murray, with Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, what he did with those players, even Spencer Rattler before he went off the rails. That's gonna be huge for Jackson Dart, who fits in that type of offense that Lincoln Riley wants. High pace, high tempo, deep shots, keep going. He's a gunslinger. He's mobile. That's exactly what you want. And he's going to be great. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, you kind of touched on last night's game as we wrap up the show. Why don't we just briefly talk about it? It was a heartbreaking one. I try not to root for or against teams too much when I cover them, but like this one was just so painful because they were 1 yard short of putting themselves in a position to really win that game. But the thing that stood out to me about last night's game was something that we have been talking about in previous weeks, and that's that this team shows heart, right? This team, like, they care. The whole apathy thing that we were talking about, I don't think that extends to the roster too. I think that what you saw last night was sort of the beginning of, or the early indicators of what the sort of cultural shift and cultural overhaul that people on the roster, outside of the program, inside the program, everywhere have been talking about that this team needs. And when Chris Steele got that pick early in the third quarter, called back for Drake Jackson roughing the passer, which was not roughing the passer, or if it was, the rule needs to be changed. They were down 28-13. They could have folded and they could have lost that game by 25, 30 points. They didn't. They fought back. They cut it down to 7 and then, or 8 and then 5, and then they took the lead. Obviously, they had that lead late, and then they gave up a touchdown late. But like, that's the kind of thing that you want to see from the program at this point in the season when everything's pretty much lost. They're not really playing for any stakes at this point, but that kind of heart and that kind of passion. I know it's like cheesy and there's no moral victories when you're USC, but the way that you saw them fight in that game was, to me, an indication of the fact that they're not that far away, that this whole cultural reset thing that definitely needs to happen, like, the guys that are there right now are guys that you can work with to make that happen. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't need to be an entire clearinghouse of the entire roster. Like, we can talk about whether the roster right now is as talented as it really should be or as it was thought to be. It's only going to get more talented when he brings in like literally everybody. But the guys that are in the room right now, I feel like are going to be an easy group to work with. And I feel like if there's anybody that can do this whole, cultural program, accountability, chemistry, whatever you want to call it, reset, faster than anybody else that was on the market, even like a Matt Campbell, even like a Randa type, even like a Luke Fickell type. Like, Lincoln Riley is one of the guys that can do that, and he's fun. He's lively. certainly keeps things under wraps many times, as you saw with the whole Oklahoma student paper, like the binoculars watching the practice that one time. I'm curious to see whether there's going to be any similar situations in the next few years here. But this is the guy. My point is, this is the guy. The roster that he has is one that can totally be worked with. It's not like a terrible roster or a roster of people that just don't care. They nailed this hire, Anthony. This is exactly what they needed, and I think this program is going to be so good in only a few years. It's not going to be something that takes 10 years to fix. Like, they're on the rise right now. And there hasn't been a better time in the last 4 years to be a USC Trojan fan.
Yeah, you touched it. I mean, I'm telling you, I was once I saw this hire, I was thinking, should I get a master's degree? Maybe I'll stick around a couple more years, see the program. After that, I looked at the cost, and I was like, never mind, bro. I'll just come later. But look, this is a home run, grand slam, whatever you want to call it. And to touch on last night's game, it was very refreshing to see some of that heart, some of that fight that against UCLA, to be honest, wasn't there. And after the game, some comments that we talked about from Nick Figueroa and Brett Nealon, they talked about, no one's playing for each other, there's no accountability. It really showed up in that BYU game, and I'm not sure what happened. I think maybe just because of those comments, and I think kind of had some internal discussions, but they showed heart, and I think that'll make that transition easier because there's a lot of players that were part of that Clay Elton era that felt embarrassed after losses. They struggled, and they might think, okay, let's like, we're ready for change. Like, we want to work. We want to get this program back. And I think that'll obviously, add to some players who might have had one more year of eligibility, were on the fence about it. I think they'll probably make that decision to come back because they want to help USC to the glory. We've talked about it before. These players don't want to lose. Like, it's not like they're going out there and trying to ruin the game, trying to not win. Things just happen that are out of their control. And they always talk about control what you can control. You can control that effort, and I think Lincoln Riley right now is the perfect man, the perfect coach, and the perfect hire for this program right now. And I think the players at hand, it's not like they're terrible. I think they're going to be willing to work. They're going to be ready to fix the program and become competitive again.
Very well said. And I'll add that the thing that was most disappointing about last night's game was that nobody was there to see it because people stopped caring. That all changed on Sunday because Lincoln Riley is your new USC football head coach. We are running out of time here. We've actually run out of time on Trojan Dash. We've gone overtime. But Anthony, do you have any closing words before we sign off?
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, we said everything that could have been said. Really. I mean, just make sure to obviously follow us on our socials. Actually, I'll let you do that deal. You're the expert.
Make sure to follow us on all of our various social media platforms: Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter. Go to our website at dashsports.tv and make sure to keep up with all of our various shows from across the Pac-12, even the schools that don't have Lincoln Riley as their head coach. Everybody make sure to follow Anthony on Twitter at Garib Sports, me at Nathan Ackerman, and be sure to tune in next Sunday for another edition, a post-meaningless Cal game edition of Trojan Dash. That should be an exciting one. Anthony, I can't wait for this introductory press conference tomorrow. I've never been more excited to see somebody deliver all the cliches that I'm sure they're going to.
Yep, same. Yeah, tentatively scheduled at 3 p.m. Hopefully stays at 3 p.m. I have some finals to do, so 3 p.m. sounds like a good deal.
That's right, Anthony. I'll let you get to those finals. Thanks.